Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are taking a look at Sentinel Miles Morales from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'll just go ahead and say it. This very well may be my figure of the year. Yeah, it's that fun. But there are glaring issues, and I don't want to waste your time. These videos I've been editing have gotten a little bit longer, so I'm going to try and be fast about this review. And this is an overwhelming figure, so it still might be a long video. And at this point, if you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, I don't know what you're doing. It is a great movie, it's a great story, and the art and animation style is just so fun. It will treat your brain to something new. Especially if you're not a fan of animation, I highly recommend Into the Spider-Verse. That being said, let's get down to the figure itself. And before we can actually open the figure, we should take a look at this box. And I'm torn on this because it's both good and bad. The good is that it uses like minimal plastic, so it's mostly cardboard, which, you know, I can recycle, and it's beautiful art all around. It's bad, however, because you can't really see the figure. It's just a weird design, and I don't mind it. A lot of the things that I buy now are done online, so I see the figure before I see it in store. I actually never buy figures in store unless they're Marvel Legends or something like that. So I don't mind not seeing the figure because I already know what I'm getting myself into. I watch reviews, I see other people get it first, but objectively, it's not a great design. So this isn't typical of every figure, but we are treated to a nice instruction booklet, just showing you all the pieces, everything that he comes with, and how to actually transfer some parts, which we'll get to later. This is always nice to have. I like things like that. It's not in color, but who cares? I especially love this sheet just to make sure you have all the pieces that you're supposed to have, so that's always good. We are then treated to 2 trays, and like I said, this figure is overwhelming. There is so much included in this, and it's going to take a while to get through, so that's why I'm trying to run through this fast. But here we go. Here are the 2 trays with everything that they come with. Let's get a closer look at the figure itself. Okay, and I'm not sure if there's much more that I can say about this other than what I'm about to say right now. This is gorgeous. And it is a beautiful, hyper-accurate representation of Miles Morales from the movie itself. The texture on the suit, to the individual blue lines between the irises, to the overall proportions. I mean, this is Miles Morales that I'm holding in my hand right now. This is a work of art. I would go as far to say that this is a work of art. It just feels so polished and clean and purposeful. Everything feels purposeful. And I hate to say it, but I will have to compare this, at least in my mind, to the Mafex Miles Morales, which came out, I believe, almost a year before this. So this figure does benefit from having a whole year of production time, a lot more time in development, but the wait is worth it. This is undoubtedly better than the Mafex, at least in terms of first impressions and aesthetics. And getting a closer look at that head sculpt, and like I was saying before, the little tiny blue line that goes in between these eye plates. This is something that I haven't really seen in action figure form before. It's that good. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get on to the other head sculpts. Alright, and apart from this standard one, which is just the Spider-Man normal look, he also comes with a winking Miles Morales head, which has a lot more personality in it. Now, these eye plates don't come off, so you can't interchange them, but I think this does the job enough for me. I think that would have been a lot for the figure. Sure, it would have helped, I think, with the overall amount of looks you can get, but this is good enough for me. I think having standard Spider-Man and a more animated Spider-Man, that's pretty good for me. Again, same detail as before. It's beautiful. It is gorgeous, and yeah, there's just a lot of personality in this right now. Here we go, getting some Deadpool vibes. Okay, and this last head sculpt is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. I don't believe the camera is doing it justice right now, but in person, the way that the eyes are implemented into the face sculpt, the way that the texture is done, it just feels all the more real. I think the Mafex is good, but it's a little soft, whereas this one is sharp, crisp, and clean, and it just is Miles Morales. It just is so beautiful from that movie. And I think this might be what set it over the top for me. There's way more to talk about here, but this is great. So let's move on. I'm trying to be fast. Alright, and moving on to the hands, and he comes packaged with a pair of fists. Pretty boring, pretty standard. Yeah, after this he does come with 6 more pairs of hands, so let's try and do rapid fire poses so you get a gist of what we're talking about. After that, we have a pair of these relaxed open hands, and look how moody. Look at this exaggerated swagger. These look really good. Let's move on. Then he comes with a pair of these dynamic open action hands, and look how awesome these hands are. They're all so different, they're all so varied, and this just brings a new energy and life to this pose. Super easy to get this figure in this pose, by the way. So, love these, let's keep it moving. Next up, and Miles comes with a pair of open action hands again, but these ones are supposed to be meant for when he is grabbing onto the side of walls or landing on the ground. Here you can see the difference in the fingertips. These ones are bent, sort of taking into account the pressure of the weight put on his hand, so that's really cool. Just a nice little added detail. They could have just given us these, but I'm glad that we have both. There we go. Next up, we get a pair of grabbing hands, and these are for the accessories that he comes with. One of those accessories being Spider-Ham's mallet, which is gifted to Miles at the end of the film. And I'll show you how it goes in. You actually take the mallet off like that, slide this underneath his hand, and put the mallet on like so, and that way it really won't fall out of his hand in any way. Here's a nice little Mario video game pose. I don't know, it's so cartoony, it's so fun, it's so random, but I'm glad it's included, and this is not included in the Mafex either, so yeah, looking really good. And what would Spider-Man be without his classic thwip hands? And these webs come attached to these hands already, so you can't take them off. And I don't mind that. Some people might, but I don't. I think that these look really great, just like the rest of the hands. But it is a bummer that the wrists can't swivel or rotate any which way, so they're stuck shooting in this specific direction, so you have to account for that in whatever pose you have it in, but I think they look good. And the last pair of hands are actually 2 right hands. So this one obviously has a spray can in it already. You can't take that out, but why would you? This looks really great. There's a lot of character put into this. There's a lot of love put into this. The people who made this obviously care about bringing the fans all the things that they love about Miles, and part of what we love about Miles is his creativity and his dream to express himself, so this is really, really cool. And while that other right hand might look like he's challenging you to approach him, is actually a phone holding hand. And so we get this little phone right here. And I'm trying to tell who's calling him on his phone. It looks like he can either accept it or deny it, or maybe it's just a notification. It looks like his dad is texting him, and I'm using my eyes to the best of their ability. It's not a super tight fix, but if you do shake it, it's not going to fall out of the hand. And I love this. This is character development. It is so simple, yet so appreciated when it's here. For toy photography, or just if you love the character, something like a cell phone for him to call his dad was very important to him. It just means something to the fans. And I think all these little tiny accessories, all these little tiny intricate details is what makes this figure so damn good, and possibly my figure of the year. So real quick, before we get into anything else, I'm just going to do the articulation really fast. Alright, so the head can look up this far and down that far, pretty far down. This is sitting on a ball joint underneath the neck, and this is a barbell ball joint, which gives you quite a bit of tilt side to side, all the emotions you could want. The arms can move out this far, rotate all the way around, double jointed bend at the elbow, really nice, really nice. And unfortunately, a flaw of this figure is that the hands are just on swivels, so there's no sort of wrist articulation. It's like a Nendoroid, it's just on a swivel. His upper torso can crunch this far forward and this far back. Combined with the lower abdomen articulation, it can crunch this far forward and this far back, so a lot better. The legs can move up this far, back that far, and out this far. There's a little bit of a thigh swivel right there at the top of the joint. Double bend at the knee, really nice. And the feet are on hinge swivels, which I wish the wrists were, but here we go. And finally, we got the toe bend. So articulation here is pretty standard, but it's really great and it feels really good. It's hard for me to describe this on camera because you won't see it until you have it, but compared to the Mafex, I don't think I'm going to break this one, which feels a lot better. The Mafex proportions are really good, but he's way too skinny for my personal taste, so this feels a little bit better. So as you can see, the arms kind of pop off easily, and that has to do with the gimmick of this figure, which we should talk about. So unlike the Mafex, you don't get a cloth good jacket or shorts, you get plastic versions of them, and Sentinel has designed this figure specifically to be taken apart really easily to interchange these pieces, so it's not a headache. And they've done a great job, but it does mean the arms can pop off pretty easily, so really it's good, but it has its downsides. Here is the basic figure, and to finalize the look, you come with a hood that just goes around to the back of the neck like this, and his hood is down. Or you get this one, which is going to go over his head, but this is really to recreate. It doesn't really go in there very well, does it? Yeah, so here we get to a huge downside of this figure. This won't go in. As much as I try. That side will go in, but doesn't like to stay in. Either way, this is really to recreate that one look where he's on the poster and he's looking back, and I think I honestly prefer the hood down. Just because, and you can't get this figure in like a relaxed pose with this jacket on. The arms won't go any farther down than this, so this is really only used for dynamic poses. And sure, it looks great in those dynamic poses, but right now, standing still, it looks pretty terrible, unfortunately. And I think this is where Mafex does win. They have the cloth goods. The cloth goods on the Mafex aren't the same color. This is more accurate to the screen, but I think having wired cloth goods gives you more options. So as easy as it is to transfer these parts out, I honestly think I'd rather have him in his regular suit, because this does look good. There's a lot of flair to it, but for overall enjoyment, I'm not so sure. The final finishing touches are these Air Jordans. They don't have the Nike swoosh on them, which for obvious reasons, licensing. And just like the rest of the figure, taking these pieces off is nice, easy, and satisfying. Hear that pop. But as you can see, he looks kind of ridiculous standing straight and up. So we'll get him into some poses later, but yeah, here we go. For the rest of the review, he will be looking like this in his jacket. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do think it looks great in dynamic poses, so I can't deny that. And there are his final accessories that we have to go over, which encompass everything that is important to this look for him. So one of his accessories are these nice Sony, I'm assuming, headphones. These can go on Miles really well, and funny enough, they don't fit his unmasked head, so they're only supposed to be used with his masked heads. And it's interesting that they couldn't get the Sony license on the side of these because it's a Sony movie. Kind of interesting, but these look great. I love the detail, the difference in color from the band across to the black and gray. It looks really good. He also comes with this elongated web, which he can hold on to. You can use those holding hands again, like so. Maybe something like that, just for a picture. Looks really good. And I forgot to mention that these are articulated, so depending on which way you have him flying, they can move. And last but certainly not least, these shoes need some shoelaces. So Miles comes with 2 pairs. He comes with a pair of shoelaces that are all tied up, and a pair that are just flying freely through the wind. These peg in right above there, and there you go, there's the 2 different looks. And one last time, I'll say it one last time, these tiny little details go a long way for the overall representation of the figure. The base of the figure already looks, but then when you have him in a perfect pose with his shoelaces either untied or not, it just adds a little bit more. And it all culminates together to one gorgeous figure. The final thing that is included in this package is a Sentinel base and support arm with a claw at the end to hug onto the figure. So at the end of the day, this figure is a treat. There's so much here to love, there's so much here to enjoy. It's just a lot of fun, and I think it's worth the money, which is not something I thought I was going to think. This was delayed a little bit. People were getting antsy. People were starting to just be okay with the Mafex. People were maybe thinking of canceling their orders, and I'm so glad I did not. This figure blows the Mafex out of the ocean just for those little tiny detail reasons. I think without those, this figure would be pretty good, but with those, this figure is one of my all-time favorites. I don't love the jacket. That is a huge issue for me. I don't love how it functions. I don't love how the arms pop off all the time with this jacket, but that's really the only gripe. Sure, maybe a few more head sculpts would have been fun, but I think what they've delivered is masterpiece level. And that's my review. Please let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Do you have this figure? Is it something you're interested in? Or do you think it is overrated? Or maybe even non-functional? Please leave any thoughts and concerns down in the comments below. Be sure to give it a like or even subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and with that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.